So we have a lot to cover today. This is a joint effort. There's a lot of information that Steve and I want to share with you. The bottom line at the end of this presentation is for you guys to walk away and start thinking about a plan. Without a plan, there's going to be risks. And it's important for us to understand what those risks, and each one of us, our risks are different. We're going to talk about NIST. We're going to talk about how these guys do these jobs. We're going to talk about some things to prevent that. And then can I get a show of hands, how many people actually feel they have a good cyber insurance on their current insurance policy? Wow. Okay. So that's the majority of ransomwares in this area appear to be in the range between 100,000 and 3 million. So we just added a policy to our organization for $3 million. So you got to think about similar to the when you live near the ocean, you didn't have to have flood insurance 15, 20 years ago. You have to have that now. So we want you to make sure you're speaking to your insurance agent and have that conversation with them to what it's going to take to get cyber insurance. There is a significant checklist. We're going to go over what they're looking for, because the better you think about it, and that's why they charge kids 16 a lot for their insurance, because they're at high risk. The better your security posture is, the more you can show them I'm doing X, X, and X, my insurance will be a lot less. You're much more insurable, so we'll go over that right there. So that's probably one of the biggest takeaways when you leave here today, is make sure you speak to your insurance agent. That statistic that we spoke about, 1 out of 5 businesses is being hit. That number is staggering, and it's only going to get worse. So I think in the IT world, we originally were a training company, we were a networking company, then we came into what's known as managed services, taking care of your IT. Was anyone talking ransomware 3-4 years ago? No. So they're going to show the first ransom attack in 2013 and then what it's doing right now. So our goal as an IT company is to educate you, because ultimately, who is responsible for the data? Would it be us or would it be you guys? Yeah, it's your data. So we want to make sure you're the ones making the decision if you don't have a password policy, if you're not going to have cyber insurance, if you're going to allow people to work on your wireless network that shouldn't be there. You're being vulnerable. Does anyone know what NIST is? Don't tell them.
I couldn't tell you the answer.
Okay, we'll get there in a minute. That's a standard. We're going to talk about that. So
we have a slide for that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And we'll send the slide presentation to everybody right here. So there's a lot of content here, and if you can just walk away with 1 or 2 nuggets to work on, I think Steve and I have done our job. So Steve and I have been talking to organizations for about 2 years. Steve has actually done training presentations to groups. He came out and did your group, right, Lisa?
Yes.
Did that help?
I think it opened a lot of eyes.
Yeah. And that's Lisa hit it right on the point. It opened a lot of eyes that, our goal, Steve is going to, start telling you what you should be doing, where the vulnerabilities are, and the more, just like you teach a child or your parent yelling at your kid, clean the room, do your homework. One time isn't enough. So you have to consistently do that. Anything else on that, Steve?
No. I mean, when I do these trainings, when I go out to the sites, I'm really focusing on trying to train the users. Right? Like, we get to see you at these seminars, or Dave talks to you on the phone, or maybe if I come on site, I sit in your office. But a lot of times I don't get to actually interact with the users, right? Because the users, your employees, they're being productive, right? They're being busy. So I don't get to actually interact with them. So the training really helps when I can get to them. And so mine is focused on what should they be thinking about, because they can be very much the weakest link in your organization. So if I can get some training into them, that really helps a lot. So do you want to watch this video, Nick?
Sure.
What do you want to do?
That's a quick one.
Okay, it's a quick one? All right.
Cities are on the attack. There have been multiple towns and police departments in the last 3 months here in New Hampshire. 6 police departments have been hit. About 7 towns have been hit. So this is a quick little video on that. Is anyone here from the municipality?
Tonight, the city of Baltimore is under an extensive cyber attack. Hackers launching an aggressive virus called Robinhood and holding many government computers hostage. The assault causing police emails to go down, as did the Board of Elections. The finance department couldn't do business this week. Fax machines and printers were on the fritz.
We know that the teams are working hard, and we do know that they're not in control of certain parts of our system. It's really frustrating, and this could happen anywhere.
And it does. A new report shared exclusively with CNN by verified recorded future, is one of the first to measure the scope of these kinds of attacks, showing that across the country, ransomware attacks are on the rise, crippling counties, cities, and towns, costing them millions of dollars. Since 2013, malicious foreign actors have been detected targeting local governments, law enforcement, and universities 169 times, 22 attacks alone this year. Figures the group behind the new study says, which represent the tip of an iceberg.
The bad guys see state and local governments as a target that is willing to pay and that they may be able to get a lot of money out of. If nothing else, they may be able to get a lot of news coverage out of.
The attackers are not governments. This isn't about politics, but money, attacking targets big and small, often underfunded when it comes to cybersecurity.
They've got a bunch of really dedicated people, but they don't have the latest tools and equipment to protect themselves.
Eric Wyatt is one of those dedicated people. Last fall, he fought off a multi-pronged ransomware attack on his 100,000-person community north of Anchorage, Alaska.
They were so into our network that they brought down the vast majority of our workstations and servers. The type of attack that we saw was far worse than anything I have seen in my past. Being in this industry for over 35 years.
1,000 employees were affected. Old typewriters had to be dusted off. The ransom wasn't paid, but it cost $2.5 million to fix the problems, which still linger today, almost a year later.
We're outgunned. We don't have the resources to fight this fight. The people that are attacking us are better organized, better funded, and we don't have the same level of capability that they do. So they see us as a soft target. Often we are.
The FBI is among the first calls that victims make. They say attackers have moved from targeting individuals to larger prizes because it's more lucrative.
We're seeing larger and larger ransomware demands of these victims.
The problem, the FBI believes, is only getting worse.
People are paying a ransom and encouraging the behavior, so I think we will continue to see an escalation in sophistication of ransomware attacks.
And then one more. This one's my favorite. So, I mean, some of these are dry, but I really like this one. I think you're going to kick out of this.
This is a specific, most hacks are ransom. This is a specific attack to get somebody they know they want to get.
So this one is just a little bit more of like, how do they do it? How do they get to one of your users? Maybe not you, maybe not the company president, but could be. But this is really targeted at one of your employees or your personal life. And how do they actually get access to your stuff, right? So, because that's always kind of a question. Well, how do they do that? You know when you're entering data into a website that might be how they did it. But there are lots of other ways, and this one's an eye-opener.
I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
You want to do a sample of phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation. And basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we had a baby and he's like, get this done by today, so I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our Uber daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through the text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either?
fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed afterwards. All right, thank you.
Holy shit. They just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Sympathetic voice, right?
I got 5 calls last night from they kept on calling and calling. I finally answered, and they were shooting for something, but and that was kind of ridiculous, calling at 8, 9, 10, 11, and so be careful with that personal phone right there.
So our splash screen, not too much to say about that. We watched that video, we watched that video, and we watched that video.
Here we go.
Which one are you?
You're the handsome one. So Steve and I have been doing this, so we're going to hopefully get some good content to you guys. We're going to go start with some statistics. We're going to talk about NIST. It's an important part we want you guys to understand. We're going to talk about the types of threats. Again, there's a lot of them. The main purpose of the threats is just understanding they're out there. Don't expect you to understand the exact details of each, but they're out there. We're going to talk about how they do it. We're going to talk about some options you as an organization can put in place. A lot of it is common sense. A lot of it's free. A lot of it's part of your acceptable use policy. There are some people, especially in compliancy, manufacturing, healthcare, there's some added layers you do need to add to protect your patient data. Because ultimately what they're doing is they're trying to go after your data and your client base. So if they have access to your machine, I'm going to pick on Matt, so he's an accountant. If they can get to his stuff, which they never will, correct? They're looking for information because he has a lot of private information about his clients. So if they can get through to Matt's organization, they've just broadened their horizon to have a lot more data. So you need to think about that if you're in medical records or if you're in insurance. They have the ability, golf courses, they might have certain information on your members. Okay? And how do we lower our risk together? This is a common effort. It's not our responsibility. It's ultimately yours, but it's our job to help educate you on what that is, and then spend time for questions. So data breaches, $6 trillion in damage by 2021. That number was about $1 trillion about 3 years ago, so it is really going up. 76 billion in illegal activities via Bitcoin. Steve will go over that. Only 10% are reported. Someone give me a few reasons why only 10% are reported.
You know my clients to know.
Perfect, Laura.
Bad press.
Bad press.
It was terribly bad press.
So they'll probably pay the ransom and not know about it. What's another reason they might not want to?
Bad backups. Bad backups.
Yep.
Or
Lack of backups. And that's ultimately, Chris, what they're going for is that if they can get to your backup, that's what the better hackers are doing right now. Even though you have a lot of measures in place, if they can get in, they're going back 1, 2, 3 months to destroy your backup. A lot of times the average person's on your network for approximately 6 months. They're just waiting to collect more information about your organization.
Yeah, in many cases, they're protecting their own jobs, right, by not publicizing what had happened.
300 billion cyber attacks, security market, ransomware, 13 seconds. I think that was about 22 seconds a year and a half ago. So think about that. I think that number will be cut in half next year when we look at that number. Steve talked about the hacker for $1.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. You put that on there. Like, what? How can they do it with $1?
They make an investment to be a hacker. They're sent a kit. They're sent information to get to, we'll talk about the dark web, how they buy this information for $1, and then they have the ability to start hacking it. It's pretty amazing.
So, yeah, I apologize. Like, I knew that they bought information. I thought it would be more than $1.
Nope.
What?
$1.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I think a lot of us know some of these larger attacks. I'm not going to hit them all, but typically in the past they hit the larger businesses. That's where the data was. But we're going to find out today that about 50% of it's going after the SMB market, which is typically where our audience is today. But look at some of those numbers: 3 billion, 150 million Under Armour, eBay, 145 million. I think a lot of you heard the TJ Maxx. That one was actually done through, that's a pretty cool story. They had a new HVAC system put in, and the vendor that was doing the HVAC used wireless, and they were on the private wireless, which was a mistake. These guys were outside just trying to hack in, not knowing what they could find, but they found the magic bullet there. They were able to get into the TJ Maxx. Once they got onto the private network, they had everything. So that just came through your HVAC vendor. How many of you guys today, which we just added, have their HVAC on a computerized or their wireless? Does anyone add it there? You control your heating system? Does anyone add that yet?
We have it at work, we have wireless thermostats.
Okay, so that's another vault. We just want to make sure it's on the public and we lock it down.
We don't have a public.
Okay.
What about camera systems?
Camera systems, exactly. So those are things we hit John right there.
Yeah,
So
that's one of the things that we always have to guard against, because we'll get these calls, hi, hey, listen, you guys control our firewall. The AC vent, the HVAC guy wants to be able to come in from his company and manage the heating, because they're getting calls, we're too hot, we're too cold, what's wrong with your system? Or the video cameras, so we're helping them. And then so there's questions that are being asked. So we can't just open up a hole in the firewall and let you in, because if we do that, we're letting anybody else who understands how this HVAC, so it only takes a hacker to understand, do a little bit of research on how the HVAC software works. And maybe that's only just what port number does it use. There's a good chance that any company that may be using that, if they hit that port might be open, right? Because sure, just open it up, right? So there's questions like that. Same thing with camera software. Lots of camera software, it's widely understood, known, easily researched what the major video recording DVR type equipment is on the market. How hard is it to figure out? The spec sheets are right online. So the spec sheets tell you right there on that company's website how you would set up remote access. So now not only are you setting it up because you want to access it, they know too, right? So you have to do all of the security part of it. Is it a secure website? Is the password secure? And those are things, that's how they're getting in. They're looking at those alternate doorways into the network.
Can you set up a separate firewall to protect the devices, separate from your actual data system? Like all your HVAC or your cameras or whatever, why wouldn't you set up a separate?
You could, Laura, but what you would do, you're still having a firewall and you're still having an IP address that they could potentially know about. That's one way of doing it. You could do the added cost of having a separate network that maybe you keep a little, what you're trying to do there is you're trying to keep that secret from your maybe more publicly understood network.
Yeah.
But what you're really trying to do is, have a really good high-grade firewall and then having security policies in place, like making sure that, for the example that I did, if you're doing DVR, so that's fine, you want to hit this website from the outside, right? Is it secured with a certificate and a strong password? The same kind of protections that you're doing when you go to your banking website, right, to go do online banking, you're trying to do that for your DVR. So those are the types of things what you want. What we're trying to talk about here is to not forget about that part. Like, how is it easy? And one of the things you can do, even without us, is if it's really easy for you to access the camera and get through it, it probably is pretty easy for them too. You can always, everything that Dave and I are going to talk about, and I do this in all of the training I go to, and I say, if you find it to be a pain in the you-know-what, that's the point. If it's too easy, then stop and go, well, this is too easy. It's too easy for me, it's way too easy for them. Okay. Go.
So that's the number I want you guys to see right there, the 43%. That was a very small number 2 years ago. So they're upping their game because they're able to start looking at our SMBs and decide it's a little bit easier to get to us. There's not as much security in place. And their goal is to get probably between 5,000 and 300,000 seems to be the big number. If you're a little bit bigger company, they're going to shoot for the millions. Once they're in, they kind of get an idea of the value of your business. They're able to see the transactions you're running. A lot of them, once they have access to seeing what's in your banking account, they know the number to push you, similar to when they kidnap somebody, the ransom, they know what that guy might have for money. So they're pushing the limit to what they think they can get, and you as the organization have that tough call if you're going to pay them or not. We'll go over that. 83%, go ahead, Steve.
And just a note on that, so they're in IT, right? They're doing IT, they're hacking you via IT. So for a lot of the companies that get these kinds of extortion schemes, they're always shocked at the number. The number is not so exorbitant, right? That they're just unequivocally saying, no, I'm not doing that. And the number's not so low, right, that it's actually not profitable for the hacker. They know what it takes to recover from this, right? They're in IT. They know more than likely what the time frame is going to be to recover data, right? And they've been studying your company, so they have a good idea of what your yearly financials are, and they know they've targeted a number that makes you go, we could just pay them and be done with this, right? Or I could do 5 days and be 25% more that I'm paying than what they're asking for. And that number can be really shocking how accurate it is in terms of being profitable for them, but just enough for you to go, just pay it. Sorry.
No problem. So the average cyber attacks carrying a price of $3 million. If you remember some of the first slide, we showed the larger organizations, 3, 4, 500 million. So that kind of draws that average down. But the SMB market's typically between 100,000 and 300,000 is the numbers we've been seeing. SMB, again, you guys are experiencing about 8+ hours of downtime during a breach. And 1 in 323 emails to a small business are malicious. So I get about 300 a day, so I'm getting at least 1 or 2 a day. We're finding that the spam software is stopping a lot of it. We'll go over that. And we're talking about web content filtering. We'll go over that to help stop with that too. Anything else on this? Okay. So negligence is a big reason. A lot of companies, and I would think part of you agree, we're too small. They don't want us. Keep in mind, this is random. They're just throwing that, just when you go fishing, you're just hoping someone's going to bite that hook. Look for that fish. It is, you're just hoping for it. And they are just going, they're not particularly going for Laura, they're not going for Matt. They're just seeing if someone in your staff is biting. If they bite, that's how they get in. So again, the weakest vulnerability of every business are your employees. And it's our job to help you, to help understand what we can do to educate them, because they're there to do their job. You know, they're there from 8 to 5. They're not thinking about the ransom and the ramifications, what happens. They just want to punch in, do their job, love what they do, punch out, and they go home. They're not thinking about everything else that we as business owners are thinking about. 68% of small businesses don't have a true disaster recovery in mind. So we'll go over that, because that is basically the saving grace. If you have a good backup, it is secure, it's off the potential ransomware attack. That is where you can tell the bad actors to screw off. I would use another word, but it's a lot of ladies in the room. But you want to make sure that you feel good when you do that, because they can push your buttons back. 14% have the ability to mitigate cyber risk. So approximately 15% of businesses have a security posture now that they feel pretty good if something were to happen, they're in a good position. That's 1 out of 7. Get a show of hands here. How many people think that they're in a good position right now for a cyber attack? I agree with that. We weren't just in the last 2 years, we've changed dramatically what we had to do. I mean, we weren't using multi-factor authentication. We didn't have endpoint security to track the bad cops. We didn't have the cyber insurance in place that should have been in place. So we're slowly adding that, but we're not risk-free. I mean, it costs money, so you just got to decide, because you know, people want to attack us just like they want to get to Matt. They want to get to us because we have access to your data. So we at PCG have to take that seriously and protect our assets. 60% of companies go out of business within 6 months of a cyber attack. That's a staggering number. So you want to minimize that risk. You guys work hard to get where you are. So let's see you take that one.
Yeah, so 92% of malware, email, everyone has email in front of them. It's become the memo system for messaging and memos, notices. So it's really just, you really, at this point, you can't think of running your company without giving email to every employee. Every employee you hire someone new, it's like, well, you got to get them an email address, right? So that becomes the easiest attack vector to get to everybody in the company, right? Maybe not everybody has some of the other accounts that you might use. Only one person in the company might be doing a DVR, right? Or is managing the HVAC, but everybody is sitting in front of an email client, right? That is how you are memoing them. You're late for work, or everybody's coming to the company picnic. So this is the #1 attack vector, right? And so tricking your users, right? And that's what that part is talking about. Users in the US open around 1 in 3 phishing emails, So this is and you're going to see this later on in the presentation, and when I do this for users and I do training to come to see people, it's all the time I'm talking about how this war is constantly being fought. It is constantly there are the bad actors, we call them, are constantly coming up with new ways to trick you. The good guys, companies that are writing spam software, us, are constantly trying to figure out new ways to mitigate it, to say, all right, but it's never-ending fight, okay? Human error, right? So someone let them in. You saw just a crying baby was really all she needed to get access to that person's stuff, right? So you add in, we can add all of the computer systems you want, but if the person on the inside of the network who's been trusted to work there gives away the keys to the door, the keys to the kingdom, then there's not a lot that we can do. Okay, so those are kind of big points that we're trying to make there.
So I asked earlier, Chris, I think you knew, so don't answer. There is a government agency, there is something to help us do better at this. Can anyone tell me what the common language and framework used to improve your security posture when it comes to cybersecurity? Does anyone know what that's called?
He said it earlier. It's a trick question.
NIST, okay. So NIST, who's actually heard of NIST? Okay.
Might be just us, Dave.
Just, no, I saw a few hands. So that's a very big, that's a common process that you're going to see for your cyber insurance, that, you know, do you follow those guidelines? A lot of people that are manufacturing, especially when they're dealing with the military, do you follow the NIST guidelines? If you're providing any form of product or dealing with people overseas, NIST. So you got to think about that, and we'll go over that, but we'll get to what it is. So it stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It is a common platform that it follows for every business. So they, first of all, the part we're all trying to decide right now, identify where do we stand, what are we potentially missing, where are our risks, and what are we going to do hopefully to resolve that. So you're going to first identify is the most important part, and if you have not done a security risk assessment, you should do one on yourself, because that helps you with your where you stand with your clients, your vendors, as well as for your cyber insurance. Okay. Next thing is how we're going to protect. See what are some options on protection.
So firewalls, antivirus, software scanning software inside your firewall, okay? So we call that AUP, Advanced Protection. So spam software, training is protection, okay? So I'm gonna jump to the next slide though, Dave. So NIST is a government agency, gives everybody, you've given this idea. So the thing about NIST is if you've ever done a PCI compliance, because you do credit cards, right? Those companies that are doing the PCI compliance for you are following NIST. That's where they're getting these standards. So that's what they're using when you're literally paying them to run a scan against your network, right? To see where your vulnerabilities are so that you can take credit card processing. They're getting this from NIST, okay?
Let's go to the next slide.
Wait, I want to do this slide for a second. We're going to fight with each other.
Okay, that's good.
I don't want to talk about this slide. Because this one is, I think, is my favorite slide in the whole presentation.
But the other one is more detailed.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to it. You want to wrestle over this? Don't wrestle over this? So here are the ideas behind it, right? And here's the 5 layers of things that you need to be thinking about for security in your network, right? You've got to identify, okay? Identify what is it that you need to protect, right? So protect how, what it is it that you need to protect and like how you might go in. I don't love this category. It should be 4, but that's fine. Detection, okay? Literally, how are we detecting things, okay? What are we gonna do about it, okay, if we detect it? Okay, and how are we gonna recover it, okay? So I wanna ask you guys all a question, okay, while you think about this. If you could only have one of these 5 things, okay, you need all of them, okay? But if you can only have one, what would you say is the one that you have to have? Okay, so hold that thought for a second. Just give it some thought, but hold on for a second. Because let's take it outside of IT for a second. Let's use a different example to kind of help you think about this. And so we had a security professional run this by Dave and I, and this really got Dave and I thinking about how this works, right? So if you think about this as your own house, okay? Identify would be literally you making a list at home going, what do I have, right? Jewelry that's in the house, TV sets, my 2 kids, I don't want them taking them. right? What's in the house? What do I have that is like of value, right? So that's what identify is. Protect, how are we thinking about protecting it? Like I said, I don't love that category because I think it fits in both, but how are we thinking about protecting it, okay? Detection, right? So detection would be your alarm system, right? You've put an alarm system in the house. It's gonna go boo, 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 right? Response, that's the police department, right? This goes off, what happens? The police come, right? Or you call the police. So that's the police department's response. Recover, that's your insurance. That's your homeowner's insurance, right? Somebody breaks in, they steal stuff from you, right? The insurance is gonna give you money back, okay? So now that I've kind of laid it out in terms of your house, but all of that applies to your company as well, which do you think is the one that you gotta have? What's the most important? All 5 are important.
Protect.
So Laura said response. She likes that she's gotta have a police department, right?
But what if the police department doesn't know?
Yeah, don't give it away,
Oh, okay,
Dave.
okay.
No, you're good though. But what else? What were some of the other answers?
I do.
Yeah, what are some of the other answers? What else do you think? You like protect as well. You want that police department. You don't want to live in a lawless world.
I like recover.
You like recover, okay? Insurance, right? That's fine. All of this can happen. Someone's going to pay me back.
Backup would make it
Yes,
matter more than
of
insurance.
course.
That's fine unless you've got things that are not replaceable. I think you've got to know that somebody's getting in your house.
So these are all good answers, and this is what this exercise, I'm taking a little bit of extra time out, but this is what this exercise gets you to start thinking about. It's absolutely detection. It's 100% detection. If you could do, you need all of them, but the one you can't live without is detection. And the reason why is, so let's say, oh, so protect, I apologize. I skipped over protect because I have a hard time with this category. Protect is the wall that you put around your house, right? Be a wall. Detection is the alarm system, okay? If you don't have detection, how do you know how tall the wall should be, right? 10 feet, 5 feet? Should I do razor wire along the top, right? Without detection, you are guessing. You're guessing at what it is, right? You can have all the police departments you want in the world, Laura. That's fantastic. These guys are amazing. They're wonderful. They have awesome uniforms and really cool cars, right? But if you never detect the person breaking into your home, they are off doing something else. They're driving around catching perpetrators in downtown, right? Unless you know that the person broke into your house, the police are useless to you. Okay, they provide general security, yes, your home, your area where you live, but they're not actually able to respond to someone breaking in. Okay, insurance is fine. You gotta have insurance, right? And actually, what's interesting, if you think about this with the companies, right? They won't let you own a house without having insurance, but they'll absolutely let you run a company without having cyber insurance. It's kind of crazy if you think about that. But they won't let you buy a house without having homeowners insurance. So the insurance is fine. You gotta have it. Right, but if you never knew that the person snuck in, took the jewels out of your jewelry box, and you didn't notice it for 6 months, right? And then your wife goes to look and goes, "Where's my stuff?" So that's probably not happening, but you get the point I make. What good is that going to do you? Because the insurance company is going to go, "What? You didn't file a report? You didn't? It's way past the time. I don't even believe you at this point, right? You've got to have detection." Okay, and that's the same thing for computer companies, right? Or your companies, excuse me. Without knowing that the hacker is inside, right? And what was that stat that we do, Dave, all the time? Like it's like most hacking attempts for larger companies, the hacker has been inside the network for 6 months or more. Okay, they didn't just come in, grab a bunch of data. They got in and nestled right in. Thank you very much, because they have your data, but your internet connection is useful to them. They are going to use that to try and cast the net to somebody else. They're looking at your contact list, who you're doing work with, who else can they talk to. If they can read your email, they know who your customers are, right, or who your contacts are, and they can start working on getting into their networks, right? So this is really kind of an important thing to understand where this process happens. What do you need to protect, right? So we talk all the time when I do my trainings. what are your most vulnerable sections? Because you have sections of your company that aren't that vulnerable and ones that are absolutely the target, right? So company presidents, right? They want company presidents, owners, right? They're the ones who are making the big decisions, driving the process. They're busy, right? Easily targetable. They want your AP and AR. They want your accountants, right? Those are the people who have the most passwords, right? They literally have their hands on the money. Okay, they're counting it, they're managing it, right? So those PCs, if I ask any company, what PC do we have to make sure that we can recover? It's always the accountants, right? I gotta be able to make payroll this week, right? So that machine has to be protected, right? So that's what we're talking about when you're identifying, right? Protect, this is your firewall, right? Your firewall in the front, the systems that are on the firewall to scan the data, okay? Detection, right? Antivirus, right? Spam protection, okay? Intrusion detection on your firewall and all the different other like firewall type, we call it firepower services that are scanning the streams that are coming through the firewall. These are all add-on services that you need to be thinking about, okay? Response, okay? That's us, right? We don't have cool uniforms like the police department or cars. We're talking about cars. But you're gonna call us, right? Hey, we got hacked. Can we recover the data so I don't have to pay these guys $40,000? And what are you gonna charge me to recover the data? Steve, Dave, we've been talking about backups. You have backups, right? And Dave and I are going, no is the bad answer, no is the career-ending answer. Of course we do, right? So we're the response. Recover, that's you guys, right? So you could think of us as recover, but no. Do you have insurance, right? What can you do? What are you thinking about if all of this goes wrong, right? What is your last step? And I'm not gonna, that's why I wanted to kind of do that thing, Dave, but
I do want to point out a few
points
things.
out some of what they are in terms of how it affects you.
So the big ones I want to think on the identify is doing a true asset of your organization. What do we own in inventory? What are assets of vendor information, our cash in the bank? And it might belong, if you own your own building, do the full asset of your business. Is there any governance you need to follow? So if you're in manufacturing dealing with the military, there are some rules you need to follow. And once you do your risk assessment and do your strategy, and I feel we'll talk about the planning as I call it your leadership team. You guys, once you have full assessment, then it becomes easier to go to step 2, how we can protect that. So we've determined where we're at, where our stance is. Then we're going to go into the protection. What things can we put in place? Computer updates. Steve mentioned the firewall, better antivirus, computer training. We're finding ways to protect yourselves. The big thing with ransomware is what's hottest in my mind is looking for unusual behavior. That seems to be the new solution that's coming out that, wait a minute, that IP, an IP is like an address. Somebody's in Chicago is trying to act as Matt's email. Matt can't be in Portsmouth and somebody in Chicago at a different IP trying to do that. So it's looking for unusual events or traffic that's not of the norm. That seems to be one of the biggest things that I want you guys to take away is looking for unusual behavior that shouldn't be a part of that network. And then we get a ticket on it. Wait a minute, something doesn't look right. We contact you guys. Oh, yeah, Joe is traveling. He is out in Nevada this week. He's at a show. So we kind of, that could be him. The response is the plan. So we got to have a plan. So if something happens, we're going to pay the ransom. We're going to tell them no. What's the amount of money? What's our disaster recovery plan? What do we do if we're held in an attack? What can we do for the next week or 2 until we get through this together? I mean, can your business run? Some people can run. I think people could still golf. You might not know what they're doing, but they can golf. And then the recovery plan, and I think, John, you like the recovery plan, is basically that's the insurance, but if you don't have a good plan and you cannot show the insurance company, they're not going to give you the money. So we'll go over that too.
I was thinking more backups than insurance, but.
Yeah, but as I said earlier, we're going to talk about the backups. The bad actors are going after the backups. So that's why you kind of need to look, when we said earlier, if there's some unusual traffic happening going to an unusual IP, they're trying to take that data and move it somewhere else.
Yeah, and you try not to get too caught up in it because some of these categories bleed into each other. Like I tend to think of awareness and training as detection. I tend to think of it more there. So if an phishing attempt comes through your spam blocker because it's nothing but text, and the spam blocker just can't do anything with it, it's just text, right? It's gotta let some words through. But that email says, hey, would you do a secret party for me and help me go down and get a Best Buy card and then buy it, right? And your employee reads that and goes, that doesn't look right, and comes and brings it to everybody in the organization's attention, that's also detection. Your employee detected that that was incorrect, didn't fall for it, and moved on. So these categories bleed together, right? So you might think of backups as recover, but it's also part of response, right? That's us going, we can recover from the backup. You don't have to pay them. We can go back 15 minutes before it happened, put the data back. It's not going to cost too much, and away you go, right? So that could be response as well. They do bleed together.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I'm going to use myself as an example. So I've been a lot of phishing on my computer, and it uses my boss's name as part of an email address. It's similar to ours, but it's not an email address, asking for payroll information.
Yeah, don't give it to them.
No, that's fine. No. So does that mean that they have, that they're just phishing and then there's no access to there's no data breach? Because I get it frequently, and so there's two of us in our office that get this similar email address.
Sure.
And of course, we're not stupid, so we kind of look at all the digits of we look at the entire email address before we even open anything.
Yeah. No.
And they use everybody's name in the company now.
Sure.
So, and then they use personal information that they've been looking at, so it looks like legit email. It's like, hey Laura, hi, what's going on? I just want you to know that, or whatever it is, and it sounds like someone that I know, and using the people that I know's names within the stuff. So that's the phishing devices, right?
That's a phishing attack. We're going to talk about it a little later, right? So I'm going to go through a bunch of slides on that. I'm going to try and move through that fairly quickly.
Pick it up, yeah.
You know, so, but just so, email has always had a giant hole in it since day one, that anyone can be anyone else on the internet. There's really no way to lock down that you are Laura at Abenaki. Like, there's no way I can spoof you. I can spoof and be you, right? That is just true of email. So it's not
right?
exactly. So it's not hard.
My friends' names.
It's not hard for them to hit your website and go to your contact us or about us section on your webpage, which almost everybody has, and then there you go, smiling pictures of people and their full names, right? And it's really not hard for them to go, oh, this company's doing first letter, last name, and boom, they have an email address. For them, it's even easier than what you saw her doing in that video. That video was her doing it for, just a random guy. But your company website is going, Laura Chamberlain, here she is. She's and literally telling everybody that you got your hands on the money. So it's not hard for them to spoof that address. And so to you, it looks like, oh my God, we've been breached. It's not necessarily a breach, Laura. They're just what we call spoofing. They're pretending to be you to get you to do something. I'm going to go through all of that really, really quickly. I'll give you the short form before we even get to it. Be vigilant and suspicious of everything. Go over it with a fine-tooth comb, okay? And if it looks even slightly iffy, you start to get into your head where you're like, how important actually is this that I action on it? Because if it doesn't look right to me, I'm not going to. So that's kind of where we're going to go with that. Definitions. I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly because we've been living with many of these for the last 20 years, right? I don't have to tell you what a virus is. We've been doing virus scanning software on your PCs since the 90s, okay? The biggest thing, malware, okay, and then phishing attacks. If anything, this slide kind of is telling you the progression of what is going on. We started with virus attacks, right? And back in the late 90s and early 2000s, company owners would constantly ask me, Steve, what was the point of that? What was the point of just taking out this person's computer and then I got to pay you, and I don't want to pay you for something I'm not getting anything for, and they just blew the machine up and then we just have to recover, right? So the answer was that the technology was not sophisticated enough to get to here, okay? So what they were doing is they were just being a nuisance. They were trying to do what we call denial of service attacks to large companies, but smaller companies were just getting caught in the crossfire, okay? What they really wanted to move to, and this is where malware comes in, is the money, right? They want to make money because this is a capitalist society, right? So they eventually got to the point where viruses didn't really make sense to them anymore. What they want to do is infect your machine to either get control of it so that they can keep casting the net, okay? Or you'll see a lot of times, and there'll be a slide of it, where they're just actually trying to extort you for money. Like, hey, they pretend to be a virus program that can clean this problem up, even though they're the ones who caused it, okay? And then you pay with your credit card, and then it goes away. It doesn't really go away, but they say it does. So monetary scheme, they're trying to make money. And then ultimately becomes and evolves into phishing scams. How can we just trick you into giving your info and we can log in? I'm going to talk a little bit of that as we go on, because phishing is very much tied to the online world that we now live in. We've moved to the cloud. So the cloud has really made phishing far more viable. Back in the day, phishing you didn't really make any sense because you didn't have anything to log into, right? You literally went into your home, into your company, sat at your computer, and then did your stuff, right? And literally your banking, you literally drove to the bank and like went in and talked to the teller, right? Phishing has come about because now everyone can access all of their stuff via a web page. So now it's a huge industry to get you to tell them your info, okay? Ransomware, you saw the videos, right? This is different than a phishing attack. Ransomware is literally where they are figuring out ways into your network, holes in your network, right? Remote access, because you guys are hitting, you have got users who are connecting via remote access, and if that is unsecured, if you're not using VPN, right, then they are coming through that hole. DVR software, heating software, holes in the firewall, websites that you're hosting internally that are not secured well, right? They are getting into your network, okay? And then they are locking the files up. The way they do this, I'm not going too deep into it, but they're Cryptolocker, right? They are seeing where your file structures are, and they are basically, if you've ever zipped a file up into a zip archive, that's kind of what they're doing, right? They're using a utility that they've designed that encrypts all of the data, right? So that you cannot open the files. Okay, and there is an encryption scheme that is very difficult to crack. The whole point that you need to take away from like encryption schemes are the hash number takes a computer a really, really long time to unlock. Okay, the math is onerous, right? So this is what the NSA does all the time. Okay, but what they're doing is, it's not that it can't be cracked, it's the time that it would take to crack the code is longer than you can stay out of business, right? So that's what they're doing. They're locking all the files up and going, we've locked your files, okay? It's far more, if you think of that, right? They got in and they saw your files, they could have just hit delete, right? But that doesn't do them any good, right? Hitting delete doesn't do any good. You're just gonna recover from the backup, right? They need a method to get you to pay them money. So what they wanna do is they want you to see, they tantalizingly see your files, but you cannot access them, right? That's what they want. Okay, ransomware, Cryptolocker, right? Same idea. They are holding you hostage, okay? So different type of attack than, say, getting into your personal info or your user's info, okay? This is an example, really quickly, of like what might pop up on your computer, right? So this is the idea behind moving from viruses. Viruses didn't really financially gain them, okay? But it was what they could do back in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is where your computer goes, hey, I've got this encrypted problem. All of the files are going, right? And we're going to hold you hostage, right? They've actually given you a Bitcoin address, right? Bitcoin, really hard for the FBI to track, okay? It's an electronic currency, right? If you think of this whole problem is created by the cloud. Why wouldn't the method also for paying for it be in the cloud? Makes sense, right? So, so what they're trying to do is they're constantly changing this hash for the Bitcoin. They're trying to stay ahead of the feds, right? The feds are tracking stuff like this, but this war is going on, right? So they're going to tell you, you got to put the money into Bitcoin. We will give you the code back, and it will unlock. You even they made it simple, right? They made it, oh my God, do they want you to not call me, right? They made it so, step, step, step. Here's the dangerous, it's red, okay? Hit the button, show the files. Show the files is literally nothing more than, think of it as the Hollywood movies, right? Listen, I'm gonna put your wife on the phone. She's fine. she's not going to be fine in a little bit, or he's not going to be fine, your kids aren't going to be fine. They want to show you the files, right? Look, this is what we have, right? Enter the decrypt key. They're going to send you the key, put it in, you got your files back, right? So they're hoping you just do this. Send them 40,000 via Bitcoin, right? So that's what they want. That's what it looks like. Types of malware, viruses, right? Viruses are pretty much like you're infected and then it's going to infect through the rest of the network. Most of the time when they're virus infecting, they're really trying to gain control of your PC. They want control of PC so that they can do things within it, okay? Worms are just, will just move through the network, right? Through ports and access methods to the PCs. Trojans, right? Trojans, obviously, based on that, pretending to be other software. Okay, so it's software that you install, right? A little different than a phishing attack. You got a piece of software that is infected, you install it. So you're actually the agent of making this happen, okay? As opposed to them trying to figure out a way in, what they do is they infect the software. So you go to a website, looks legit, but maybe it's not, because you want to get some sort of software like a PDF viewer, right? As you don't want to pay Adobe for the really expensive one. So you go find a shaky PDF viewer. That PDF viewer has software embedded in it, right, that can take over your PC. That's a Trojan, right? Rootkits usually come into your computer all the other methods, right? You can get them via email, you can get them through software, right? The idea behind a rootkit, though, is that it's just embedded in your computer. You don't know it's embedded in your computer, and it does something at a later date, right? So they're trying to break up the you detecting. It all comes back to detection. They're breaking that up, okay? Spyware, right? They just want to watch you, okay? They want to see what you're doing. And hopefully, spyware leading to another type of attack, okay? Blended threat, lots of different things, right? So blended threats we see a lot of the blended threats in that it came as a Trojan, it put a rootkit in, okay, has a spyware component on it, and kicked the worm around so that they don't have to do that again with the other users, okay? They want access to the PC, right? I'm older, right? I think about the old TV shows where the FBI gets the phone call, right? And then they go, it's at a payphone. And then the police, they have a scene where the police pull up in the car and the payphone has been taped to the payphone next to it, right? And then that one, so they're daisy chaining so that they can't be found, right? That's what they're doing. They want to remote access your PC so that any trail back to them leads to your company, not to them, right? And they're probably in like Slovenia, so. Adware, right? Just advertising, right? They're just trying to blast you with, you should buy Rolex watches. I don't know why Rolex, but an exploit kit. So that's basically, and would be more of a part of a blended threat. They're looking for things on your PC that maybe, so if you're not patched all the way, that means you might have some vulnerabilities, because that's really what patches do. Microsoft is finding new methods, or they are finding new methods for Microsoft, right, in their operating system. Okay, so an exploit kit will go through and just look at your patch policies on your PC and go, the one that locks off this access is not installed. Okay, we can use that to get in. Okay.
This slide's pretty impressive. You can see in 2012 when the first ransomware hit, you can just see what's evolved. It is staggering, and as Steve said, it's all about the money. And I look at these guys, these bad actors, it's the mafia. They're driven by money. They're paid a lot of money, and these guys are getting really good. So these, I almost went a lot of these hackers are 13, 14, 15, but they're being paid good money, working out of their house, just wreaking havoc. This one. So this one, I did this slide, and I just put on my Alfred Hitchcock, Wes Craven, I'm doing a horror movie thing. They scare you, so that's what they're trying to do. And I'm going to start to, this is my way of leading into a couple of the strategies that they use to get at your users, right? They want to scare you, right? They want to start to act like you don't know what's going on, like I'm a technology person and you're not. So, or you've screwed up, right? You've screwed up is a really big thing. They love, phishing attacks will definitely be a lot of like, your account, you haven't paid your account in a while,
right? So if you think about this, right, you're gonna get, you're in charge of paying all the bills for your company, right? You get an email that the website hasn't been paid for, right? It's about to go out. So you sit there and you go, oh my God, I can't let the website go down, or I can't let our email go down. The Office 365, your Office 365 tenant is due, right? So you haven't paid your bill, right? So you're sitting there, you're in charge, your job is to pay the bills for your company, and you get this email, you're gonna click on that link, right? You'd rather not tell your boss, right, that you let the email bill lapse, even though you didn't. Even though you didn't, the number of people who read the email and go, oh my word, right, I can't have our website go down, or I can't let my boss know that the website is down, they click it, they're scaring you, right, with your fears, right? For home users, they love to tell you that your mortgage payment, right? Is there one payment in your entire life that you freak out about more? Is your mortgage payment, right? So when you get a fake email from Wells Fargo that says it's in arrears, or you haven't paid it, or it's about to become due, we didn't get your last payment, they just want you to click that link, right? That's really all they want. They don't need you. It doesn't matter that it's not true, okay? And a lot of users don't stop and go, is this true? Like, they just panic, right? So the panic is what they're aiming for. They trick you, right? They're gonna put links in that go somewhere else that look like they're gonna go to the right place, right? They're gonna pretend to be someone you know. They're gonna pretend to be your boss, right? They're gonna spoof the email address. They're gonna trick you. They pretend to be someone else. We talked about that. They pretend to be one of you, right? That's the most powerful of pretend to be someone else. It's not just that they're gonna be one of your friends. They're gonna be your coworker in the next room, right? Who you are all day long going, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. So when they get one more, and maybe you're both tag teaming AP and AR, right? When someone comes from them that says this, you click the link, right? They're looking to catch you off guard, and they're banking on the fact that you are like this all day long, because that is how we are all day long. We are bang, 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 so that's what they're hoping for, okay? But without you, they don't have anything, right? If you don't give them the password, they actually don't get in, right? At some point, and this is crazy, a little counterproductive to what we're talking about, but you do have to trust the systems. You have to trust that you do have a firewall. You have to trust that you had a good password on the website. So you have to trust at some point that if you don't actually click the link and you don't type your password into the field, they also cannot get in, okay? So without you helping them, they probably don't have any way in. They need your help to gain access, right? She didn't know his email address or his password to his phone account, her, the hacker in that video, okay? Right? So she needed to be able to talk someone who did into it. Now, the frightening part of that video is how easy it is to do, okay? Once they are you, they roll it forward. So what, I get that question a lot. Well, what good does it do being me, right? Well, even if you don't have access in your company to really important data, although if you're the accountant, you do, okay? But even if you don't have access to all of the important company data, or you are not someone who is a decision maker in the company, you do have a portal out again of your company. So that part of where they pretend to be someone else, Laura, sometimes they're not pretending to be someone else. They are someone else. They've hacked into someone else's Office 365 that you know. And when they email it, it's not so much, that's what's made it hard for us now. It's not so much that they're spoofing the address actually came from that person, right?
But it's the wording in the email that's
Sure.
different. So
Sure.
If you read it, they don't talk like that, you
Yeah.
know something's wrong.
So I tell this all the time, we call it phishing, right? You're phishing, but it's not actually phishing, right? They're actually casting nets. They're actually trying to gather, they're trying to widen everything, right? Because everything for them is percentages. If they're only hitting on 5% of everyone they attack, right? Then the answer to that is just attack a huge more people, just go crazy, right? So a lot of times they might be you might just have someone who works on the shop floor who to you, might be, it's not fair to say lower level employee, but lower attack surface employee is how we think of it, right? That person who's down on the shop floor doesn't have access to accounting, doesn't have access to file structures, doesn't have access to HR, doesn't have any of that stuff. But they still do have an email account that can be used to either get at the company president or other people, just paying the scam forward, okay? So they roll it forward. Your information is lucrative, right? So even if you don't feel like you're this billion-dollar accounting firm, right? You know all the other people that you do business with, that's valuable to them, okay?
Steve, is it still
Sure.
true that we're using social engineering so that you may very often get these phishing emails at a time of the year that's particularly busy, or a time of the week, or a time of the day when you're...
It's all social engineering, Cindy. It's all based around, so we're seeing an increased amount of attacks on them just looking at websites, right, to see who's the company president, right? They want to know who that person is. They understand the habits of company presidents. They have, company presidents, cover your ears. They have the attention spans of mosquitoes, right? They have a million things to do, right? And they're also, company presidents are not only doing company business, but they're also worrying about their mortgage payment and the boat, and they're doing it during the day, right? Because it's their company, no one's telling them not to. Like, I can't work on my boat mortgage, right? But they can. What I'm trying to get at is that their attack surface is huge. You can get at them in a large number of ways. So they know this, right? Accounting people, right? They know that you have an ADP login. You probably have an ADP login. You probably have everything that they know about Intuit and QuickBooks applies to you because the website says you are the accountant for your company. Okay, so whatever they have developed as a method to maybe attack the Intuit website, QuickBooks passwords, I don't know what those would be. They can start applying that to you. That's absolutely social engineering. I mean, we've had social engineering in this process for even before there was phishing attacks. So we used to talk about the I love you virus, right? The I love you virus was just an email that said in the subject line, I love you, and then it literally had the virus in it. Okay? So it's like, well, how would that work, right? Like, I get I love you, like, what? Right? I'm at work, I'm doing work, right? Except for the fact that you got up that morning, you went down to the kitchen, you're in a foul mood, your wife asked you a question, right? And then you snapped at her, okay? And then you got in the car and you drove to work, and while you were in the car, you kind of regretted it. I can't believe I treated her that way. I shouldn't say things like that to her. And then you go into work and you sit down at your computer and you open up your email, and her email got hacked with this virus, and the email to you says, I love you. You were just mean to her. It says I love you. You are clicking that file, right? So that's social engineering. It's been around forever, and they're always doing that. Absolutely, right?
We have to fly through.
Keep going, right? You get me going, right? Get me talking. CEO fraud, right? So an authority figure, victim to transfer money directly to the cyber criminals, right? So we're seeing a lot of this one, right? And I've done some examples in our trainings. The spam comes through and it says it's just text. It just says, hey, I'm throwing a secret party. Dave sent this email around everybody. He didn't send it. But they went onto our website, saw that he was the president, sent all of us an email, right? That said, I need you, each one of us, you read it, it says, I want to send a secret party. So, I need you to go do something. And the idea behind the wording of it is that the secret, don't tell anybody else, right? Because the power in detection is talking amongst each other. Did you get that too? The minute someone else in your company goes, did you get that too? The game is up. Suspect, this is not real, right? So we're seeing a lot of that where it comes through that they're trying to come up with new ways to get you to get the credit card out of your pocket, right? But not trip the spam filter. Okay, so that's something you're going to see. Farming, right? They use a domain name, use it to redirect visitors. So a lot of your websites will be, the thing that I'm going to get to in a minute is the biggest one we see, and you're getting a lot of these, Laura, like you mentioned, the link goes to a fake website. But if you don't hover the mouse over the link so that you can see where it's going, you wouldn't know that, right? What a lot of people don't get is they get this phishing email, right? That says, come to the Office 365 portal and type in your password, right? Your mailbox is full, right? That's a common one. Common one, scare you, right? Or the bill is due, you haven't paid the bill, right? Common one, it's scary, right? What you don't get, what a lot of users doesn't get, is that they have hacked somebody else's website using these methods, right? They sent an email to somebody and said, your website account is about to go down, right? We're gonna take your website down, GoDaddy, whoever, right? Pretending to be GoDaddy. The person types the password in. They now have that person's password to their website. They go into the website and they build a fake website that the person doesn't even know is there, that looks just like the Microsoft portal, looks just like the Dropbox portal, looks like the Bank of America portal, the Wells Fargo portal, you name it, okay? Then they send an email to everybody with that link in it, okay? And the link looks like the Microsoft portal, right? It looks like the Microsoft address. And when you click on it, you get a page, if you didn't look at the bar, and none of us do because we're all busy, right? The page looks like everything still looks legit, right? And then I get this call all the time. When I typed my username and password in, nothing else happened. It didn't take me inside. I would say to the people, so what happened then? Well, I don't remember, nothing really happened. Oh, something happened. They got your username and password. They then logged into your portal as you and started sending emails to people, okay? So that's what phishing attacks look like, right? So keep going. Some examples. I'm going to burn through this, but I gave you the gist of what we're talking about, but it's an email that looks like one from PayPal. It is not hard for them to get a PayPal, they'll literally go to PayPal and take the icons off the website, right? They'll just copy and paste the logos and make their own, okay? So, hi, we've got this. So I can't do it, when I do my trainings, actually on my laptop, I'll get an email. If you hover the mouse over the link but don't click on it, it will actually give you the address that it's going to. And if that address isn't PayPal, Microsoft, Dropbox, delete it.
So what if you just get in the habit of internal training? You have a fish, like we have that phishing one to my president, I can immediately send an email of all the ones that they may send out to everybody in the company, so they have a heads up of you may get this email with this content in it. So and then the same with this, if a PayPal came up, I would just go to the log in myself, I wouldn't do the link. I never do the link, I just go in and log in.
So that's absolutely right, Laura.
And
So
that's what we train everybody to do.
Absolutely.
If it looks suspicious, don't use that link, go in and type in the email address.
Yep, what they're trading on is your hyperactivity, your ADD, your I need to get things done and click it and go. You're absolutely right. That is a way better policy. You could view the email as maybe this is true, maybe this isn't true, Laura, but I'm going to go to ADP, log in, find out that none of that is true, and delete the email, right? You can also just send it to us. Send it to us and we'll take a look at it, okay?
But what Laura just said is identical, excuse me, for her training of the staff. That's what hopefully you're taking away, that they understand what they're showing is not right, and then they go to the particular website and log in, so well done.
So, and like this slide is good. It's poorly written, although this actual email isn't poorly written. But you'll see a lot where broken English, right? Stop, right? Because any email coming from a major company should have proofreaders doing that part. Even if it came from another part of the world, they should be able to get. So when you see poorly written English, stop, okay? We're seeing a larger amount of them infecting PDF files and HTML files, So they're doing a lot of you're getting these secure documents that you need to sign for something, right? So they're playing on this, and again, they love targeting the company presidents, the accountants who are getting these documents that they have to sign for maybe they're purchasing a new location for the company, right? Maybe they're getting a deal done, right? So they're putting what they'll do is they'll send you the document, and when you click the document, it asks you to log in, right? They want you to use your login to unencrypt the document, and when you log in, they are grabbing it, right? So one of the other sites talked about this. I was talking about this. The website, the fake website, is back in the day. They used to have the scam of they literally erect a fake ATM machine in front of the real ATM machine, right? So when you walked up to it and you put your credit card in, they got your credit card information. This is the electronic version of that, right? They are building a fake website to get your login info, and then they start using your login info. So that's the anatomy of phishing, and phishing has come about because we now have all of these online accounts, right?
with the global payment thing, I mean, the new companies that are coming out now, and I get a lot of PDFs, and I just do a lot online. But the new way that they're doing this now is that you actually just don't click that. They actually send you login information, stuff it on your email, then you go to that login information, and then you click onto that. It's not as, they're getting, because of this, more companies are becoming more secure, and it seems like 90% of the companies I deal with now don't do it this way anymore.
Not at all. And so a lot of the companies, a lot of people don't know this, right? Again, they're trading on the fact that you don't know. They're never sending you your mailbox is full. Microsoft's never sending you that message, right? That's fake, okay? They will give you the warning messages when you log into your portal. That is when, because you have already authenticated against them, you've already said, I'm Steve, and here's my password. When you log in, they'll go, your mailbox is full, okay? Or if you're one of the admins, you haven't paid us, right? That's when you're getting that message. Microsoft is aware, and so is Dropbox, Wells Fargo, that it's not secure to ask you to do all of this stuff via email. JetBlue, right? So JetBlue, your airline accounts, they will warn you after you have logged in is when you get the alert messages that something is up with your account, not before, because before is absolutely a security risk. So the point I'm trying to make is these companies are aware of that. If you're getting an email that says this, you are immediately suspicious. It's a terrible way for them to let you know that. You will get a password reset if you have initiated it. If you went and said, I don't remember my password, right? But that's something you're doing, right? So let's keep going.
We got 15 minutes, so we got to turn it up.
Let's turn it up, turn it up. So the Starbucks, you got that, right? If you click this link, it's going to take you to a fake site, right? It's going to be accounting department, right? Scary, right? Please take into account that the IRS determines money penalty of, we would like to notify that you are encouraged to pay a penalty, right? Scary. They're trying to scare you. Okay, message from the CEO. Can we send out a wire today, right? So they're trying to trick you. These are all methods that they're tricking, right? LinkedIn messages, okay? So every new idea that they can come up with, they are. I'd love to tell you that I can go through every idea and you are now armed against everyone. There's going to be a new one tomorrow that no one's ever seen before, right? There's going to be a new system that we are all like, woohoo, look at that. And then they're going to figure out how to trick you via that system, okay? Right? There's no way I'm doing that, right? The computer's on all the time, right? Because you don't want to lose anything, right? So I want to talk about security awareness training, okay? So I think, Laura, you were talking about that a little bit, but we will do for you security awareness training where we will actually send these phishing emails to all of your employees, okay? And when they click the link, it will actually take them to training materials that says, hey, that was not what you want to do. Okay, so the hospitals use this already. The hospitals do this quite a bit. My wife works for a medical practice that is part of the hospital, and they get random security awareness. They get the phishings, and so different companies do it differently. A lot of companies will do it on a reward basis. They won't shame the person, right? They'll try to say, listen, 80% of you successfully did not act on that email. You deleted it. Good for you. Okay, a couple of you, and then they won't. Like the hospital will just, if you miss 2 of them, you are in trouble. If you click on 2 emails and then end up at they don't actually, they do the training, but they also do you were bad. And they do 2 and then you're in trouble. So, but that's what security awareness is that we're going to send them around so that your users are getting used to not just, they become aware they clicked it. But they clicked it in a way that didn't actually bring the whole network down, which is a terrible way to find out that you shouldn't have done something, right? Yeah, so things to be thinking about. How do we stop it? Training, right? These types of things where we've kind of figured out that we can put firewalls in and we can put the firepower scanning software on the firewall and we'll put AV on your machine and we'll put spam blocking on it and everything else. But if we don't talk to you or you don't get your employees in front of us or do the training to your employees yourself, you still got a giant hole because sometimes the email comes through the system. We do the best we can, but the hackers are constantly going, So PCG, these ISPs, they're using Proofpoint as their spam blocker. They're using spam blocking in Microsoft 365. They know the tools we use, right? It doesn't have to be. Many hacker organizations will set themselves up as a managed services provider to understand the business model, right? They will set themselves up and then figure out what are the tools that we're using and then start to figure out how to get around those tools, right? It's the scary part of the thing. Many things you can do. Acceptable use policy. That's really the part out of this slide. So have a policy that you've gone over with your employees. Sounds incredibly basic, but most people don't, right? So you think it's pretty obvious, right? Try not to blow things up. That's why I hired you. Try to be productive and make me money, make us money, make you money, right? Sounds pretty basic. But actually having a policy that says you can't go do this, you can't do that, we're gonna hold you accountable for this, you can't do Facebook online, that clears the air. Like it literally makes the employee aware when they have to sign a form, now they are aware that these are things I cannot do. If you have to litigate, you have a policy that you signed. But really more importantly, not only let's talk about litigating their employees, we're talking about the company having a discussion. We're having a discussion about this. We're not waiting until one thing blows up and we lose a lot of money, and then we all gather into a huddle and go, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. So have the discussion ahead of time, okay?
The Reader's Digest version for us is, understanding what the problem is, what are the risks. So I think we understand what the problem is. They're out there to get our money. They're out there to wreak havoc on us. So now the importance of this, we need to determine the severity of the risks. Each business is different, so we want to measure that risk and determine what are we going to do to help mitigate that risk. The solution, there's many things we can put in place. Like Steve said, security awareness training, very inexpensive to do. Having a better password policy. We'll talk about multi-factor authentication. There's many things that we can do to mitigate that risk. And then the costs. What's it going to cost me to add those? But if similar to you add insurance on your house, I would think probably none of us here don't have insurance on your house. You probably hopefully never use it, and you're going to pay that $2,000 or $3,000 a year. You hate paying it, but you have to have it. You got to take that same thought process for your business, because what they want is your data, and your data is king. So you got to protect that data at all costs.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have to decide. Passwords, don't make it easier for them. If you're using the same password for everything, it's easy for them. So I talked a little earlier about what do they get by being you. Probably the biggest thing that they get by being you is not the particular website that they got into. So they got into your Office 365. Okay, that's great. Okay, and maybe you just email a few people. Maybe you don't do that much with it, whatever, okay? But you can guarantee, because they're using computers to do this stuff, okay? They're gonna take that username and password and they're gonna run it through everywhere else, okay? They're gonna run it through the Bank of America, JetBlue, Dropbox, you name it, because human beings will use the password again, right? And wherever you used it again, they are now in there, right? So if you fall for a scam and you type the password in and you've been using it everywhere because it's easy to remember, your cleanup is huge, okay? So passwords, right? Consistently different everywhere you go, make them complex. Again, the rule is, if it's a pain in the you-know-what to you, you're doing it right.
Yeah, the average person is accessing approximately 50 sites with passwords. Does anyone want to take a guess what the average number of unique passwords they might use for those 50 sites? 4. So excellent guess. So think about that's a staggering number that we're taking that same password and we're using it to every site. Who here is using a personal password management tool? And we're using LastPass, something similar? Okay. So those are things we want you to start using, because now those passwords are actually generated for you. They're very complex. So having a password manager is a very easy thing to do.
It's user ID as well.
The what?
User ID.
Yep.
I mean, everybody uses the same user ID.
Yep.
Yeah, and so the industry needs to do a better job of that. The industry really got sucked into using your email address as the username for everything. So that even when it's not even, you can use your company email address for this account over here, and they will prompt you to ask for it. The industry has gotten really They got tired of people not knowing the accounts because that means you're a customer that's not logging in. So now it's like, use your Facebook account to log in. Okay, but if your Facebook is easily cracked and you're not doing anything with your Facebook account, then they're getting in. So passwords have become more important because the industry is not doing a good job of requiring a unique username anymore. So, yeah, try to have, you get this, passwords, change them, keep them different, right? Is your only real security for your personal stuff, okay?
Some websites require it now. I mean, they just automatically,
So-
the New Hampshire Department of Revenue.
They're gonna start to get better.
Makes you change your password or you
Yes.
can log in.
Yeah, so they're getting better about that, Laura, and you're gonna see more of this as well, okay? You're gonna see more and more two-factor authentication because so if you were to ask me the question, Steve, what is the industry's response to this problem? Because it's a huge problem with the easily cracked and logged into. The industry's response to this problem is two-factor authentication. And you're gonna see more and more where your banking website particularly is going to be like, you have to set up the multi-factor, we're not going to let you continue. Okay? Because yeah, they are. They have to because multi-factor is the method that's going to prevent, even if you fall for the scam, the hacker can't log in as you. Okay? So multi-factor works fairly simply, right? They're going to tie your phone to the account so that when you go to log into the website, the bank website, right? It's going to ask you for your username. You're going to put whatever your username is. You're going to put your password in, and it's immediately going to go, hey, and it's either going to, whatever method you use, you can have them call you, which is probably the least favorite one, and I wouldn't do that one. But they can call you. They can send you a text message, which is the most popular, or you can use an app that authenticates, right? So, and there's multiple apps. Most companies, so Google Authenticator is one, Microsoft has an authenticator, there's a Duo Authenticator, they may have their own, okay? And the idea behind the app is it either pops up as an alert on your phone, or you can use it to generate the code. It's sort of like a text, but just a little more secure, just as easy to set up. But the idea is that only the person who has that phone, this is the important point, only person who has that phone can get into the account. So even if you fall for the scam, you are not breached because when they went to go log into your account, the text came onto your phone. Now, you also have to, with multi-factor, that's great, but you have to learn to be like, if it pops up on your phone and you didn't do it, don't say yes, because you just let them in, okay? But generally speaking, the idea is that they would have to now kidnap you. Okay, or steal your phone. And in both of those cases, you have way bigger problems that are outside of the scope of this meeting. Okay, but that's the idea behind it. And you're going to see more and more and more of it, but you should absolutely be taking this, heading straight into this. You should be multi-factor authenticating everything you can. For dear God, multi-factor authenticate your Amazon account. We all have Amazon accounts, right? So when they hack you, when they credit card you or everything, they love to make little payments. They like to make little purchases, okay? So that you don't notice. They don't want to make a $1,500 payment they really do want a nice giant TV, but that's one you're going to notice right away. But if they constantly do $12 to $25 ones the same way you're doing all day long, all week long, you probably won't notice. Right? So they're doing money making over time, right? And Amazon has every kind of thing you could ever want, right? It's a giant department store of opportunity to purchase stuff on your card, right? So multi-factor authenticate your Amazon account, your bank website. I mean, I can't stress it enough, right? You have to protect yourself. We're starting to push out more and more the multi-factor for the Office 365. We've done Office 365 for many of you. We do it because we have to do it as a project because you have to talk to every user and then get with their email, their Outlook, their phone, their account, and them. So you got to do it incrementally, but we're working on getting everybody switched to that. For your own accounts, if it's a pay option, multi-factor, okay? And almost everyone now, and Lori, I'm sorry, you're going to see more and more of it. Be suspicious now of a serious website that does not have prominently the security features that you can configure. Okay.
Quick question, I know multi-factor was a big buzzword about 3 years ago, but no one knew about it. Is everyone, they've heard of multi-factor authentication now? I assume most of you have gotten something that they're checking something on your phone, a code was sent. So when we converted over, I thought it would be a big pain, but every website, everywhere I make purchases from, it is that extra step, but it's something you have to do. And when we first did it, it was a pain, but it's kind of like my normally daily flow right now. But I think Steve hit it on the button. Multi-factor is one great tool you can add.
Yeah, so this is pretty straightforward, but be a part of this is really what this slide is talking about. We are, we take you on, we're talking about immediately, we call it the onboarding process. We are talking about putting virus software on every machine. We're talking about spam blocking. We are talking about security. We are talking about changing out your firewall when you come on board with us, right? So we're doing all this stuff. We don't want you as a client, right? We don't want to have a client that has several that don't, because that's a call. No one makes money that way. No one comfortably makes money that way. If you take us on as a client, as a provider, and then you get a virus 6 months in, you're like, Steve, what's going on, right? So we don't want to have that hole either. So our first thing is, this is what you're doing. But be a part of this solution. Be a part of, are we protected? Are we doing this? Are we going? Do I have everything I need? Okay. Yes, so we talked a lot about this. I've already covered a lot of this. Training is a huge part. It's my biggest struggle is that I can put the systems in place, but to get companies to give me access to the users is hard for obvious reasons, right? Taking them out of their work week to do an hour and a half, and you can see how long I can go on, so that's a fear, right? But getting access to them to be able to say, to make them aware that it's okay, that everyone is being attacked this way, everyone falls for it sooner or later, and everybody needs to be aware of it, is a huge part of it. And so I have the biggest problem with companies that just won't let me ever train the users. And I try to say to them, your user let them in. It's like, and then they look at me and they go, yeah, but your software should have stopped it. Why am I paying you? I'm like, that's a good point, and I got to work on that. But the users are part of what's going on. Yes. So be careful. Have a firewall. Have the fence, right? If you're talking about that home analogy, your firewall is the fence. This is definitely much our purview, right?
One thing on the firewall, a firewall from 5 years ago didn't have the added services, as Steve said, build a bigger wall, make it harder or thicker to get through, protecting your house. So if you've got an aging firewall, there's a good chance that does not have what you need in place. So the newer firewalls have certain layers that you can add to it to help prevent them getting through the gate.
Virus protection makes sense. Managed response, planning, enumeration, intrusion, lateral spread, complete ejective, right? These are all of the things that, and if you look through it, I won't spend a lot of time, but just they're doing research on you, right? They're attempting different types of things, like just a quick phishing attack. Can I get a password? That's the easiest way in. Who am I, right? Steal the data, give it out to other people, right? Steal the IP, deploy the ransomware, secure it, finally breach. The point of this slide is that they're not just doing one simple thing. They're researching you and planning the attack beginning to end. Okay, so for most of these hackers, this is they're doing business the same way you're doing business. You're identifying what your core feature set is, your expertise in it, you're developing a method to do it, and then you're implementing it. That's how you're running your businesses. They're doing the same thing. They're going, this works for us. They're not just targeting necessarily, but they're coming up with a system for this, and then they're applying it to as many people as they can.
Steve, do you know is the situation as bad in Europe, and do you know if that's what the whole general data protection regulation is partly about?
So they're probably, so I want to say it's as bad everywhere, Cindy, but Europe is doing a better job of the corporate and security policies, the policies that they implement. They're doing things like making sure that the operating systems in Europe don't have a browser. It's a security hole that Microsoft just gets to have Internet Explorer automatically on the PC. You need a browser, But Europe says that as a company, pick the browser you want to use and implement it. They view a browser as a same business decision as anything else. Whereas Microsoft, the US lets Microsoft get away from it because it's a corporation that's in the US and it's part of it. But they're better at the policies that the government puts in place. But they fall for phishing attacks just like anybody else, right? And you'll see viruses spread there as well. So this is more, if we think about that slide all the way at the end, right? The response. How are we going to recover you from a ransomware attack, okay? We need to be able to get, so we do image-based backups, right? We want to, as an IT guy, I want to be able to say yes, not no, right? So the best way for me to say yes is to have images of the server for as many points in time as I can, okay? That I can instantly put that image back to the hardware, okay? To the point in time that I want to, okay? That's how we're going to say we're not going to pay the Cryptolocker. We're going to put an image back on the server to whatever time. So we do 15 minutes every day, okay, from like 8 to 6. But we will vary that based on your hours of your company, okay. But we can go in and say that particular server has an image of it that we've been imaging every 15 minutes, and we can go back to that, okay. Other backup systems that are not imaging, that are just file-based, you're taking chances, right? Now I'm in the realm of, I think so. I think I can recover that for you. Let's try it, okay? Whereas a BDR, now some companies will do BDRs where they're just putting the image back on the existing hardware, but we will also do BDRs where we call it spin up, where we will spec the BDR out so that it will actually run the server while we're either doing maintenance or recovery or fixing. So that's more based on hardware failure, the motherboard went down, not so much phishing attacks, but we can do that. But we want image-based where we are looking at, yes, I can put that server back to a point in time immediately, okay?
Quick question on
Sure.
the BDR. You were saying they were going after people's backups.
Mhm.
If you have a BDR, can those BDR backups be corrupted as well?
Absolutely.
So they can. An important part, so yes, but an important part of having a BDR is that we call it hardening, securing it. Okay, so some of the core attributes of a BDR are it's not joined to your network. It is it is in your network, but it's not joined to your domain. It has a completely different password and account setup that are on it. Our remote desktop turned off, all of the vulnerabilities turned off, right? So we still have to have a device in the network that recovers things, absolutely. But what we're talking about is having a device that is not one of the core servers that they are targeting, okay? Harder for them to get into, no ways for them to remote access to it, no worms that can get at it, right? Is it perfect? No, but that's what we're trying to do.
If the data itself is corrupted on server 1 and it goes to the BDR, then that's corrupted too.
And that can happen. Okay, there have been phishing attacks for companies, and you'll see this in like, so the phishing, the ransomwares, they love cities, they love towns, right? It's not the town's money, and it can't fail, right? So those are their favorite targets. And so they do see that where the BDR also got hacked. It can happen, okay? There's a limit to what you can do in terms of you have to just put all the protections in place and then go from there. Manage BDR. This is a quick, what the heck is DNS? So this is a website on how we do web filtering, okay? So web filtering is just another method that we put in place so that the links get blocked, okay? And in many cases, I do this a lot for our companies where when I go do the training, I will actually do the fake email and then I'll click the link. And the web filtering will come in and go, yeah, block that, right? So what we're doing here is we're saying we're putting up another protection in place that should catch your people's websites. But the war goes on and they come up with new ones that the web filtering doesn't always know about, okay? DNS filtering, quick slide on how that works. We're running out of time, but basically, it's another filtering agent and security protocol, okay? Email security, do your two-factor, work with us to get two-factor going. Disclaimers, spam blocking, no auto-forwarding, right? Anti-phishing policy, right? And we do most of this stuff automatically for you, okay? Disable any web portal that does not need it, okay? Which is rare, almost everyone does need it. This is a hard one to do for Office 365 because Office 365 kind of requires the web portal for you to manage your account, okay? But these are things that you can do to kind of harden Office 365. Honestly, the Office 365 really needs the training more than anything else, what to look for and what not to do. Okay, spam protection, extra spam blocking in front of. Some companies use this. Some, we have policies that we put in place, like the firepower on the firewall, on a need-by basis for each company. Right? Do you need extra spam filtering from what Office 365 provides?
The built-in 365 is average. If you're a company that is in outbound marketing, you're sending a lot of outbound emails and you're a prime candidate to add the proof point because it adds that extra layer and it's easy to work with. We see that in a lot of people that are doing staffing, that they're constantly searching, looking for information. So if you're doing a high volume of emails out or in, you're a prime candidate to have an extra layer on top of the 365.
Yep. This stuff, more of Dave and I. Nobody wants that. Employee education, lunch and learns, reminders, posters, software-based training.
The lunch and learns are great. So Steve's probably been out to around 12, 13 businesses. So he's available for a couple hours. It's a great way to bring in your team and just constantly remind your group, like I talk about our kids, of what to be aware of. Who's heard of the dark web? Okay, good. So it's something we didn't know before. That's the worst part of the internet, and we have a service now that is actually running all this. Imagine every bad site that's out there. It's constantly searching and it's coming up. It's looking for your password and has been compromised. Your username has been compromised. So we will get alert on that. And when I go to a company, I says, by chance, is this what you use? So I just was at an attorney's office recently, and we ran the dark web. I went up to one of the attorneys. Do you use this? Yeah, I use that everywhere. So that was a wake-up call for him that I knew his password. He's going, how the heck did I know that? But if I have it, other people have it. So we do run the dark web, and when we get alerted, we alert you, and it's a prime time to change all your passwords.
So the private web, just to get the terms right, the private web is like the NSA, the government, the Pentagon, okay? Amazon has a private web section that we don't see. Large corporations have, Intel, IBM, they'll have internal networks that are big enough to be considered web, okay? And that's the private web. The public web, that's us hitting the browsers. Like we just go to Disney.com, that's the public web. The dark web is a web unto itself where for $1, that's crazy, for $1. But like you can buy lists, right? So I don't know how that's initiated. I don't know how you would talk to somebody, but there's way. But you get onto forums and lists and things like that, and you put the feelers out there. But you can buy lists, right? So what's happening out there? This is the scary part. A lot of these companies, these online portal companies, they're getting breached. Probably your biggest attack vector is not so much you, especially the more you know, the better off you are. But they are getting breached. They're huge, they have departments, but they're getting breached, and your credit card info is getting pulled out of their accounts, okay? And when they have your credit card info, then they're using it. So you have to, in this day and age, you have to watch your credit card register. You have to watch your site, because you will start to see charges that are not you. And you're like, how am I buying food via an online delivery service in California when I'm sitting here in New Hampshire, right? They bought a list off the dark web, and your credit card was on it because you fed it into, like, you bought tickets at JetBlue. JetBlue got hacked, okay? So sometimes it has nothing to do with anything that you did, okay? They got breached, okay? So that's what the dark web is doing, right?
So we spoke about earlier on cyber insurance. I saw just a few hands go up. I can't reiterate it enough. Call your insurance company. Find out what it's going to take to add to that policy. They'll send you a survey, and they'll kind of ask you, do you have a password policy? Do you have a firewall? Do you use multi-factor authentication? The more you can say yes to those, the better your price will be. But on average, I think mine is about $3,000 per year. I pay $750 a quarter for a $3 million policy. So check with your provider and, determine the value of what you feel for the worst case scenario. How much cyber coverage do you need? Is it 1 million? Is it 2 million? Is it 5 million? Make sure if the ultimate thing happens that you have protected your business. When you submit that survey, a lot of us, that's why we're going over those things, that if you don't have multi-factor authentication, you don't have a solid backup. Those are kind of grading you down. The more you can go up, the better you are your posture, and you'll lower your premiums. Excellent, Steve. Is there anything else after this? So planning, our last slide. Planning is critical. I feel you should meet with your leadership team. You guys should talk about the value of the business. Let's talk about where my risk might be. Let's talk about if cyber insurance isn't needed, that we know what we have in place, and if something happens, what are we going to do? Because it is going to happen, so what do we do? Are we going to pay the ransom and immediately get to the FBI? Know who your local FBI is. We had a recent town that we had the FBI there. We had the main guy from the New Hampshire Police right there. These guys are on top of it. They have to follow sieges, the criminal justice side of cybersecurity. But you need to know who's there because they're going to help investigate where it happened from. Know your attorney, your accountant, your insurance, your staff. Be ready so you can contact those people when it happens, because the more you plan, when something bad happens, you can be prepared so it's not chaos. How long can you afford to be down? Maybe I can run my business for a week. Maybe I'll take more time to investigate what I can do. But if you can't be down a week, you might just say, Steve said earlier, I got to pay the ransom. I can't be down a day or two, because that ransom of paying $30,000 is a lot easier than playing the game all the way through. So know what you think you'll pay for the cyber insurance. Know that you're protected. Contingency planning. John, you asked earlier about my backup. I should be testing every 3 months. It takes time, but at least I know that my backup was not corrupted. I know I can go back. Cyber criminals are going after those backups. So as Steve said earlier, image-based is the way you want to go. A lot of our clients are still using files and folders or carbonite. That's a risk. So a lot of times there's the recovery fees, there's the embarrassment that your customers have been compromised, there's your reputation. So one of the slides said earlier, only 10% are really reporting it. So I don't think anyone wants to raise their hand here, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone in this room has been breached, and it's something that is happening. But the hassle and stress of the investigation, it's tough. The newspapers are in there. If it's a town, everyone wants to know everything. It's tough. So I think just emphasize planning and doing a risk assessment of where you are to know where your security posture is at. So as we talked about in the risk assessment, the name of the game is keeping your intellectual property and data safer, which only comes from an understanding of your current risks and vulnerabilities, and then fortifying your defenses. Steve talked about the house. I love that analogy that you put up a fence. You have a dog. You have the security system. You have that, what's that doorbell called that you can see people? Yeah, you do that. A lot of people have a weapon. So again, you got to fortify what's there. And these cyber criminals, and to get a more desirable risk position. So what are you willing to accept? Data is king. So we do offer cyber risk assessments to at least see where you're at. And I recommend that highly for all of you guys. We do take your time. We did run a little bit over, but it's a lot to cover right there. John will send you the slide deck. We're available for any one-on-one calls to just, this is a mutual, as Steve said. People in IT expect us, they cover that. We will help you and put things in place, but ultimately it's your decision on your data. We can't control people going for these phishing scams. We can't control people not using a password policy. Steve and I are going to recommend that two-factor authentication has to be the way we move forward. Has to be. I mean, things have changed. Without that, you're at risk. So, part of being on the internet is, it's good for business, but it's a pain. A lot of times, I think some people want to unplug the internet, have no email, but you can't do it that way at nighttime. Well, I'm just going to unplug it. Well, how do your remote users get access to my files? So, you just need to be more vigilant is all we can stress. Any other questions before we wrap up? Anybody? Wasn't meant to scare you. No,
it's scary.
There's a lot there.
It's scary.
This stuff was not being spoke about a few years ago, and if we're not talking about it, we're not helping you. So just like your insurance or your attorney or accountant's giving you advice, it's our job to at least inform you. It is ultimately your decision to what you're going to do, but Steve's going to be vigilant about our security awareness training. I'm more than happy, and I tell all my customers, send me your current cyber insurance policy, because I guarantee you that if you were hit and you haven't checked some boxes when you go get time to get paid, you're not going to get the money that you think you got paid. So we're here to help you. This is a road we have to work together on because this is only going to get worse. You know, were we even talking cybersecurity 2 years ago? We really weren't. And it's in the forefront.
And then, you know, it's important to understand that the industry itself is moving towards all the servers not being in your building. That is, whether it happens next year, 5 years from now, but the goal for the industry is everything in the cloud, everything. So more and more and more, you're just gonna, this is gonna be, your data's up there, is it secure? But it's there, it's not here, right? So you're gonna get further and further away from the traditional concepts of locking your door and keeping your stuff there. You can keep that going for as long as you can, but the industry is gonna keep rolling forward like a giant juggernaut towards everything in Azure, in Amazon, and so your servers are gonna go up there, your email's already gone up there. I've pretty much removed every email server that I put into customers' clients' offices. I've pulled them out and moved them to Office 365. So you're gonna see that with all of your data. You're gonna see that with whatever you consider your line of business application. So if you have a sales reporting tool, Salesforce is huge already. You're gonna see it all move. The entire industry is heading there. So these issues of how you access them and how you connect to them and how you control your access and not giving it to someone else is only going to get bigger and more important going forward.
Last slide, Steve.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, one more. So our next breakfast series will be scheduled in February, March. Who's using Microsoft Teams?
We have it.
Wow, wait till you guys see what this stuff can do. So Microsoft Teams is phenomenal. Microsoft changed the name of how we do video conferencing, and they used to call it Skype. So now they're calling it Teams. I think most of you heard of Skype. So Teams is a way your internal teams can collaborate. You can have an accounting team, a sales team. Instead of a bunch of emails going back and forth, it's hard to track. You'll and your group almost think it as chat or texting as a group you're there. The ability to do conferencing for your customers and your vendors, and a way just to collaborate. Anything else from how's Team working for our tech side? How's it helping you guys?
No, it's good. So Microsoft views Teams as probably the more important application. Outlook is the more important application for them now, but they view in the future to Teams kind of take that over. Because it literally is they think of it as the front end towards everything else. You know, you're chatting immediately with your coworkers as opposed to sending yet another email that says, sure, yes, I did. Okay, I'd love lunch. You can just chat to them, but you can also, built into that same concept is files that you might be working on. You can build a team for the group that's working on it, whether it's marketing or it's just, 3 people who are going to be doing the company picnic this July, right? You can make a team that they can all collaborate in there. So Teams is fantastic. It really kind of, and if any of you ever use Slack, it's Microsoft Slack. But the idea is that to incorporate all of the concepts, instead of jumping from 3 different things where I read the email, I open up Excel, right? Or I go to my file share on my server, right? The idea is behind Teams is to put those 3 concepts together. The files are there, the communication with the customer is there, or you can do video conferencing out of it, right? So you can do meetings with someone who's not in the building. So it leverages all of the other functions that Office 365 gives you. A lot of times when I do Teams, what I'm doing is I'm showing you the other stuff that Office 365 does besides Outlook holding your email, okay? You got into Office 365 because of the Outlook and your email, but you get all these other things, and Teams is what unlocks it.
It's free too, it's part of your plan.
Yeah.
So is OneDrive. Who's using OneDrive?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, another free service to put your files up to 50 gig of data. So OneDrive is becoming a popular place because now you don't have to remote into your network. You have these files available to you out in OneDrive. And each one of you have your own personal OneDrive that you can put your stuff up there. And then OneNote. Anyone using OneNote? Only one hand going up, Chris. Good, at least you're on some of it right there.
I love OneNote.
It's great stuff. So, well, that's a hot topic, and we'll send you out that invite. But thank you very much for coming. I hope you learned a little bit. Have a great day.